And I'm going to get started here. I want to thank you all for coming. Today we're having our second session on motivational interviewing during challenging times. Here we go. This webinar is brought to you by the National American Indian and Alaska Native Addiction Technology Transfer Center. We are part of a network with 10 regional centers, a network coordinating office, and the National Hispanic and Latino ATTC. And we are also, this event is also sponsored by our National American Indian and Alaska Native Prevention Technology Transfer Center.
I'm going to ask that everyone please mute right now. Please mute.
Oh, yep. Sorry, it looks like we maybe had that turned off, but I think I've got everybody muted now. So sorry about that. We are supported by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. And just wanted to say that the content of this webinar is does not reflect or not necessarily reflect the views and policies of SAMHSA and HHS. We do have CEUs available for this event. We will be sending out a follow-up email that will confirm your attendance. So often your licensing body, that might be all that they require, but if you want an official certificate, we will send that to you. We just charge $15 one time per year for all of the webinars of ours that you attend if you would like a CEU certificate for that. And we'll send out a request form along with a follow-up email as well. We do have a short survey that we would love for you to take a few minutes to complete after we finish out our session here today. So we'll be sharing a link to that in the chat box. But we will also send that survey link in a follow-up email. So if you don't get a chance to take it today, we would greatly appreciate you doing that when you get that email in the next few days. Just a quick overview of how to use Zoom. If you would like to chat and share responses, you can click on the chat icon on the bottom of your screen, and that will open it up on the right side of your screen, and you can type in messages there. And we will also have times during our session today where we would welcome your audio feedback and comments, and so you can unmute yourself at that time as well and share your comments that way. And now I'm going to pass it over to Steve Steiny. He is the program manager for the ATTC, and he is going to introduce our speakers for today. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kate, and want to welcome everyone back. If you had a chance to join us for the part one, that's fantastic. If not, this should still be beneficial, and as Kate had mentioned, we will be making this available. We are recording this event, so it will be available on our YouTube ATTC webpage for you to view at your convenience. My name is Steve Steiny. I am certified addictions counselor here with the state of Iowa. I practiced clinically for 23 years in the addictions and mental health field, and I have been with the National Addiction Technology Transfer Center, American Indian Alaska Native program here since January of 2019. So I'm honored and blessed to be with you today. I want to thank you again for joining us for the American Indian Alaska Native National ATTC Motivational Interviewing During Challenging Times presentation, part two. And again, I'm honored to be here. At the close of our time today, we will be posting, as Kate said, a link to our evaluation in the chat box. If you're not able to complete this evaluation directly, we will send you an email to ask you to complete the survey. It's a very short survey, 2-3 minutes tops. It allows us to continue providing services and ensures continued funding in the future. Wanted to say too that we will be saving the conversation from the chat box today So please be aware of that when you're writing comments in the chat box. We will review this and remove any sensitive information before saving it in our archives. And as I said, we are recording this event today for future viewing. You're currently muted. However, you will be able to and have the option to unmute yourself using the bottom left portion of your screen or the right top portion of your viewing screen to unmute yourself as needed. So I wanted to share that, and then I want to now turn this over to today's speakers. Again, I introduced both of our speakers last week, but we have with us Dr. Kathy Tomlin. She has been working in the field since 1974. She has been in the addictions and mental health treatment and prevention field as a counselor, administrator, educator, and consultant, serving many different roles. Dr. Tomlin is committed to sharing her work with Native American communities. Part of her career is focused on the development of supervision and training initiatives to enhance the practice skills and professional development in counseling and related fields, promoting evidence-based practices. One of those best practices is the teaching and supervision of motivational interviewing. She is a member of the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe and also has some Irish roots, which we won't hold that against her. So I too have Irish roots, so I can say that. Anyway, we're really thrilled to have her here. She is broadcasting today live from Portland, Oregon area, and we're really thrilled to have her here with us. Let's see, Kate, can you advance that slide for me? Not sure if I have the, there, thank you. Also with us today is my friend and colleague, Kevin Tomlin. He is a licensed professional counselor, certified addictions counselor. And I think I always say the more letters you have behind your name, your common sense seems to
That's a new one on the
more.
end.
So yeah, I see that.
Washington State, it says substance use disorder professional. There may be some in the crowd.
I love
today.
it. I
Congratulations
love it.
if you are. You didn't even know, I bet.
No, that I like that sud P.
They just let us know. By the way, we changed all your letters.
Kevin is also broadcasting live from the Portland, Oregon area. Kevin is originally from Puget Sound area and now lives in Portland. He is currently working as an addictions therapist and participating in various ways with members of the MINT community. And those of you that don't know, MINT is the national certified motivational interviewing trainer. So we're really happy to have him here with us. Kevin walked with several teachers over his professional and personal life in shaping his voice as a therapist, retreat leader, speaker, drawing on diverse traditions. Clinical training followed Kevin, and Kevin now focuses his energies on integrating this. Whoops, I just lost my screen there. That maybe that's a Kevin. Maybe that's a sign that I'm supposed
that's
to.
That's actually perfect.
I should have this.
The experience of losing your screen.
I maybe should not have to read so closely off the script, but
you pronounced Puget perfectly.
Yes, I got it this week.
Well
Those
done.
of you that last week saw me butcher that, I want to just I've redeemed myself. I'm feeling redeemed now. He's currently working closely with members of the motivational interviewing team of trainers to this end. So really happy to have Kevin and Kathy here with us today, and I want to turn it over to them. You will remain muted, but I know Dr. Tomlin likes to call on folks to participate, so you should have the option to unmute yourself as we get started. So with that, again, really wonderful to see a full room today. I'm going to turn it over to Kathy, and I don't know if we want to open with a blessing before we get started. So I will relinquish the floor.
You know, Dr. Miller wrote a prayer, and I wasn't prepared for it, but let's see if I can find it on motivational interviewing. Let's see if I can find it in my book here. It's a pretty good prayer. Unless somebody else in the audience wants to offer a prayer. I don't know if I want to take all the time to find it. I wasn't prepared for that, so I apologize. But it's really an acknowledgement.
And
Okay.
I think Roy was invited to
Oh.
offer a blessing as well, if Roy is here. But I have it here if we want to go that direction.
Is Roy available? Okay. Why don't we go ahead and read, do you have it available to just read to us? His prayer?
I do.
Okay.
I'm going to have part of the prayer will be clicking. I'm clicking on go
Oh,
to
there.
stage,
Oh.
folder. Got it. So should we go?
Is everyone okay out there? I just want to check in.
Do we have it set up so that folks
Everybody
can
okay?
Okay, thank you.
Everybody's okay,
I just
good.
needed to check. All right, so we're going to say a prayer. Kevin, you want to take it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hang on. Creator.
Nora.
I'm going to pray now.
Okay, let's take our prayer.
We want to come to you in this time of adversity. We stand before you, mindful of the ancestors that have gone before us, and we call to them as well to draw our focus to those who suffered. Of course, we mean those who are ill. We also mean those who are helpers. And our understanding is that the purpose of today is to come together and discuss how to be better helpers for the people who are ill. Bring your spirit of protection. Bring your spirit of knowledge, of focus, and of community, so that we may walk with people in a better way. Aho, mitakoyase.
Oh,
Thank you, Kevin.
Hey, Kathy.
Okay, we're going to get started here. So many of you probably, maybe that I could do a check-in with you, were here last time. And so what I'm going to do is a little bit of a review. And then kind of go from there. So let me know if the quality of the screen is fine and all of that as I proceed. So just a little bit of review. Last week we talked about the spirit and style of motivational interviewing, and you can see on the screen we talked about the traits and qualities of the spirit and style, which is both verbal, nonverbal, a way of connecting. The way I like to describe spirit and style is the practitioner is creating an environment where there's partnership, compassion, acceptance, and a willingness to call forth the personal wisdom of the persons that I'm trying to help. Here are the four key changes, ways of making change. Starting with the bottom, we talked about engagement, spirit last week. Today we're going to talk about engagement and focus, and a little bit about evoking. And then just a reminder, the first thing that we do is spirit and style and engagement practices. And this, we have to learn this first or offer this first before we can move on to focus and targeting a specific behavior change. So you'll see at the bottom, it says learn this first, but it also says the core skills, which we did half of them last time, are the ORs: open-ended, affirm, reflect, and summary. So we talked about open-ended questions. We paused to consider some questions that you might typically ask to invite someone into a conversation about change. We talked about the expression of empathy and what that is, and this is where spirit and style can be a big asset. And we talked about, and there were several very good examples in the chat box on the types of questions around a case study. And this is a case study. We'll review these two cases and build on them today by adding the other two parts of the ORs. Then I have a video segment that I found that I thought would be helpful. And then we'll continue on and talk about focus and ambivalence. But let's just take a minute and review our cases. Keep in mind I'll have this slide reproduced down the road here, so we just have, and then we talked about how we would introduce yourselves, and we got some discussion going on that last week. So today we want to build on our case study and talk about this idea of affirming or supporting. In motivational interviewing, they call it affirmations. And affirmations are kind of sometimes they're misunderstood, but they're very potent. They're very, very helpful things that you can do that would communicate to the person you're trying to help that you're really with them and you really understand them. So some examples are, you're very courageous that you decided you wanted to tackle this problem. Your willingness to discuss this important issue is admirable, even though it's not your favorite topic. And thanks for taking the time or consideration to listen to my advice or information. And that last one is important because depending on how you're working with somebody, there might be this need or desire to want to offer advice or information when the person is ready. And so that's the key for doing something like advice or information, is to make sure that they are ready and to ask permission before you offer it. So I heard a ping. So before I move on, I want to get back to the chat box and see. Let's see. Okay. There's a lot of moving parts for me in this one, so hold on. Okay. Well, I can't see it, so I'll just move on. Yeah, I just wanted to pause and talk about what people's experiences are with using affirmations, and do people use them? What's people's experience using them? And I can't see the chat box. Oh, here we go. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, let's just take a moment and if we could talk about what people's experiences are with doing affirmations and whether or not this is something that you do on a regular basis, or if people have a negative reaction to it. Please let us know through the chat box. And Kevin or Steve or Kate, if you're getting anything in the chat box, would you let me know, because I'm not getting anything.
I'm watching it now, so.
Okay. Oh, here we go.
Yeah, here's Kate. Kate says, I think they can be powerful in coming alongside of the person who is experiencing distress.
Yeah, and very very affirming of that distress without without making the distress bigger. Affirmations can affirm an experience by taking some of the hard part of it, of a distressful situation, taking the sting out of it, but still sitting with somebody when they're struggling, and they need somebody to acknowledge them. They need someone to say, yeah, this is difficult, this is hard. Yes, a fuel for self-efficacy, for sure. Self-efficacy meaning you're calling upon the own person's abilities and strengths and confidence. You're acknowledging their ability, their strengths, their confidence while you're talking with them. Not that you're trying to get something from them. So sometimes people hear affirmations as, what do you want from me? They get suspicious of it, depending on their history. So they can be effective, and they can also not be effective. Yeah, the validation for sure. And the help for the positivity in life. And that's the other piece about affirmations, is they can provide a lot of hope to an individual. So that's the good side of it. I have also heard that affirmations, for some people, they get suspicious of affirmations, or they sound like questions, where we don't want it to sound like a question on the receiving end. We want it to sound like a validation and maybe an opportunity for hope and hopefulness. So when you're doing affirming, you're making statements and not asking questions. And the best affirmations that I've ever heard is, is exactly what Lindsay's saying, is when it comes from that person to themselves. So sometimes affirmations are best done when the provider offering them notices something special or unique about that individual that they want to highlight. So looking at their strengths, looking at their confidences, looking at their talents, acknowledging something that they said in the moment, in the conversation, related to their motivation. They can be very motivating statements and very helpful. So that's examples. It's like noticing somebody, and it's saying, "Wow, I just noticed that you said a wonderful prayer this morning. Thank you." That would be something that I would offer to Kevin. Thank you for that prayer. And you could share with them that the experience of that with them was very helpful to them, and then you could follow it up with how was that experience for you. So you can combine affirmative statements with an open-ended question. Okay.
Dr. Tomlin,
Yeah.
Roy has his hand raised. I don't know if he wants to unmute and has a comment.
Okay. Where is he?
Oh, I'm right here.
There you
Uh,
are. Hi.
yeah, I think my video might be working now. I'm on my phone, so you guys will have to endure looking at me for a minute. Couple of things that kind of struck a chord when you mentioned the double-edged sword about
Yeah.
and one of the things that immediately popped into mind for me, and I love affirmations and do a lot of affirmations. Just as an example, someone who has an eating disorder, to give them an affirmation of how great they look, they're not going to believe it. And they're going
Yeah.
to argue with you on that
Uh-huh.
and often even be offended with that, which doesn't really make sense. But to be careful of things like that, as well as people that have had a lot of trauma in their past, to tell them they're a good person when they've had their whole life, they've been told what a bad person they are, and they really don't believe that. So to be really aware of the affirmations, I like to use affirmations myself because they've heard enough bad things about themselves. So I like to use affirmations about even little things that they did in that day and affirm, something good that they've done so that they can keep hearing those good things, and to give those affirmations from a real place of humility, that's just real honest and true, even if it's just a small thing that they did that day. It may seem small to us, it may have been a really big issue for them. And to just be aware of those little steps and affirm them in those of what they do. And that was just my thought when you said about it being a dual-edged sword, of some of the situations I've made those mistakes in the past myself,
Yeah.
without a doubt.
Very excellent point, Roy. That's exactly what happened to me too. I was working with a trauma survivor, and I truly did feel what I was feeling for her. But boy, she had from my end, an unexpected reaction. And then I learned a lot about be careful. And even if they say, hey, wait a minute, what do you want from me, or whatever their reaction is, that you validate that. But that's a very good point. So yeah, it can be very powerful to be finally affirmed and validated. But you have to be also aware of the reaction that you're going to get, that it could backfire. But you also said something really important, Roy, also, which was in the moment, little things in the current, in the present time, is making affirmations in the present time, in the moment, for little things, is a nice way to offer that carefully to the other. Thank you for that. Yeah, Kelly is saying, which is true, it's important to know the difference between an affirmation and a compliment or praise. You can compliment somebody and they can reject that. When an affirmation works well, the person feels it, and it might even stop them, and they might start reflecting on what you said to them. If they're not having a negative reaction to it, or praising somebody, like, you did really well. And it sounds like a lot of other people have said things to them in the past where they didn't really believe it. So yeah, you have to be able to go with the flow. And I think being in the present time, even in the session or the time you're spending with them, even if you just notice something about them while you're talking to them that you might consider minor, but for them might be the beginning of understanding. Affirmations are not necessarily threatening. Specific to that, what they're doing, things you notice about them that are in the moment. So we'll get to practice some of that in a second. I'm going to pull the slideshow back up. The chat box is really just for those of you that are participating in the chat box, feel free. I really want to be interactive with you, and it's nice to have these discussions, and I'm reading the chat box comments, or to go ahead and talk to us by unmuting. I can't see the raise hand, but if somebody would keep me posted on that, that would be great. It's hard for me to not see you and want to be in the room with you. So this is the best. This is a fun thing, and I'll try to do the best to keep the conversation going.
I don't know, Doc. I'm getting some feedback from folks. There seems to be some black bars appearing across your share screen. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Not sure what that is.
Well, let me try that. Does that help?
I still see it too.
Oh, I see the black bar too. I don't know what that is.
Seems to be blocking the slide for some reason. Yeah, it looks like other people are experiencing that as well. So I'm not sure.
Okay. Let me know if that helped. I just did something.
That took one away. Now there's one off to the right that's blocking just part of the screen on the right side. So I'm not sure what that is. Yeah, others are seeing the same thing.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what that is. It's almost like there should be a video up there or something. I'm not sure what that is.
Let me see down below.
Kate,
well,
I don't
not
know
helpful.
if that's something we can address or not. So
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if it was happening when I was sharing, if it might be like, if Zoom, you know, because I had, when I was sharing my slides, I wanted to be able to still see the chat and the participants and stuff. So I don't know if that is messing up share at all.
Well, I just minimized the chat box. Does that make a difference?
Yeah.
Sure does. Yeah.
So it's the
That
chat
may
box.
be it, Doc. Yeah. Why don't we'll try and manage the chat box, and if you can keep that reduced. For some reason, it's blocking part of your slides.
Okay. Well, I'll go in between.
Kevin and I, and yeah, we'll watch the chat box for you.
Okay. I'd just like to see what people are typing, and have people unmute and have a voice to talk to as well. So I'll go ahead and move on to the next slide, which is summaries. Summary statements. Well, maybe I'll move on to the next slide. What happened? There we go. And then I want to get out of this and see the chat box. So here, let me know if you can see this slide. And I'll Steve, if you can tell me, because I can't see the chat box at all. Let me know if people can't see this. Okay.
Yeah, but
so
I think
in
folks
motivation,
are able to see it. Yeah,
okay.
Folks are able to see it better now. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for the feedback. In motivational interviewing, there's 3 types of summary statements. Affirmations and summaries are statements, not questions, in motivational interviewing. And some of you are probably pretty good at doing this. Summaries are mini summaries or session summaries, where you're summarizing a whole time together with somebody, or when somebody's moving from identifying and focusing on a behavior they want to change to a place where they're actually going to want to move to the next process in the change processes. So we'll start with the first one is called collecting. And collecting are summaries where you're identifying what the person is saying that's important to them. So you'll hear them say in the course of a conversation the same thing every so often, or more than 2 or 3 times you'll hear the same sort of theme from them. And generally that indicates that that's something that's super important to them. summaries are strategically, in motivational, they're strategically used to advance someone into talking more about changing. So what you would summarize back to them are the pro-change statements that they make around the things that they want to do with life, in their life, what things they might want to change, versus summarizing things that keep them in what MI calls it the status quo. So Miller talks about putting together a bouquet of change talk statements, or a bouquet of motivating statements that that person has shared with you about why they're there to see you, what's important to them, why it matters to them in the present time, what they hope to get out of changing for their immediate future. So that's a collecting type of summary. Now you can do a collecting type of summary. I call them mini summaries throughout the course of a conversation with someone, just to kind of keep them connected with you, but also to reinforce their motivation to change. Linking phrases together. Linking phrases is another type of summary statement that you can use, where you take one area that sounds like it's related to another area, and then you put them together, so you link them together. For example, on the one hand, you're concerned that your drinking is affecting your health, and on the other, you're not sure if you want to stop. So you might hear the person talking, stop drinking, or stop X behavior. Could be smoking, it could be whatever. And then you'll hear them say, but they're not sure if they're ready, or they're not sure if it's the most important thing, or they're not sure if they really want to. So you're trying to collect the types of motivation and readiness is a way to link concepts together. Or it could be something where they're highly motivated. For example, I really do want to stop drinking, and I have already tried to stop drinking. I've cut my drinking down, but I haven't quite gotten to full not drinking. So you'll hear lots of motivation. You'll hear attempts at change, but you'll also hear some concern about how to keep it going. So that might be a theme that someone is talking with you about, and doing a summary statement can help them process that. And then the other type of summary is when you're transitioning at the end of a session. Say there's a lot of things that happen in a meeting with them, and you want to highlight the important things from the whole meeting. Or you are acknowledging that they've moved in the process of change. They've gone from not willing to change to ready to change, or they've worked through some ambivalence. They're now ready to change, but they don't know what to do. They don't know how to plan for it. So those are, that's a different kind of summary statement. I see Roy raised his hand in my corner here.
Hello again. Boy,
Hello,
you're
Roy.
one of my passions here. One of the statements that I really like to use that not only affirms the person, but really gets the information back to you is an active reflecting type of statement. So what I hear you saying is, and state it, and give them the opportunity to correct you, just in case. A lot of times, I know myself, I overthink everything. So I'll interpret, and I don't want to interpret. What I want to do is I want to listen, I want to hear, and I want to make sure that I really know what they're saying. So a lot of times in that process right there, I'll ask, so what I hear you saying is, and I'll reflect it back to them and give them the opportunity to correct me. That also validates their viewpoint on things and gives them a little bit more power in saying, no, what I really mean is, you don't have it quite right. And really let them explain it, get it out there to you, to make sure where they're really coming from and where they're at with it. And it really opens up dialogue with them in doing that.
Yeah. And it's important when you do that process, because that's a process, a communication process, that you don't say, did I get that right? Because then it takes it away from them. You want to say, what else, a reframe for that is, what else is important to you that you would like to add into our conversation? Because you want the focus to be on them, not on you. And so there's a way that MI does that where the focus stays on the other. And yet, you know, we're people. We want to know if that person and you are in sync. But you definitely want to keep it on that person. You want to make sure that the conversation is about them and not about whether or not you got something right. So those would be my comments.
Sometimes
My favorite.
unsure,
Yes.
I'll ask permission. I'll say, I'd like to check something out with you that you just said. So sometimes I'll ask permission to do that before I give that statement.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They know that I'm asking a question of them to think through.
Yeah, that's an often helpful and underutilized tool. I think if we could build into our repertoire, is this a good time for us to pause and reflect? Would it be okay with you if we ... just asking permission. That expresses partnership in the spirit and style of MI and collaboration. Good point. Anybody else? Okay. Okay. What are people's experiences with doing summaries? Sometimes what I get feedback on is that it's hard to remember everything that someone says, and that it's can be challenging if there's a fear of not picking up on everything that is important to an individual. Does anyone have that experience where when you're trying to do a summary that you feel like you can't remember everything that's important?
I have had that experience, and it happened to be when I was doing a demonstration in front of other people, and unfortunately I forgot the most important thing that the person was really talking about. I left out the thing that was like his blood pressure, and it was very funny, you know, because what was great about it is that, well, he just corrected me with that. He said, yeah, you left out this, and that was a great way for him to hear himself talk about what's the important thing.
Yeah. You know, you just said something super important, and that is when you're practicing MI, it's okay to be wrong. And it's actually kind of relieving as long as you remember to say, well, what's missing? And that could be very helpful. It's counterintuitive because I think as helpers, we want to make sure we're doing the best we can by paying attention really well, but we're human too, and when you're under pressure, you forget some things. So that's a really good learning experience, actually. And it's also kind of relieving that you don't have to be perfect and you don't have to remember everything, that you rely on your client to help you in the relationship to make sure you're on target with each other. Anybody else? Okay. Are we, let me see, I want to get, there's a part of me that wants to see what you're saying, so I'm gonna, let's see. Okay, Stephen, Kate, and Kevin, are there any comments I need to address before I go to the video?
Well, there's some great comments reflecting on what you're sharing. there is a request that you keep your hands down so we can see you when you're speaking. Might just be the angle of your camera, but I thought I'd throw that
My
out
camera angle is terrible.
there.
Yeah.
That's okay.
I don't know how to fix it. And I'm also really short. I'm really short, so
Okay, let's
There,
begin. Hi, everyone.
okay, that's not the right video. I don't know how I got that one up.
There's a comment about considerations for different populations, such as
Yeah.
Formerly incarcerated patients when you're using MI, and then also Melissa says, I think every provider has a different level of being present. The more I'm present, the better I do at picking up on their important themes.
Yeah.
Self-care helps me have the mental energy to be present more often. So that's great, a reference to self-care, Melissa.
Yeah. Sometimes people get tired in session, and sometimes it's the best thing to do is just pause. Just say, I'm gonna let's reflect on what's going on with us right now in the room.
And Roy makes a good comment that you may get it wrong when you're doing this, and that it's a great way to sort of show your humanness and say,
Yeah.
I didn't get it quite right. Please let me know. Help me understand a little bit better. So I thought that was a good comment too.
Yeah. Very true. And hey, by the way, you're going to get it wrong. So
that's right.
That's human, and it's just be real. Be real with people, and they'll. Nobody wants to be with a helper who isn't helpful. So our patients and our clients actually make it easy on us because they want us to be good at what we're doing, which is kind. It's kindness. Okay. I can't even see if you're seeing me, but I guess people are seeing me and I don't even know it. Okay. All right. So I'm going to try this video. Let's see if I can get this video up. It's a video that was originally prepared for medical students. And I'm just going to show a segment of it. If you have the ability to go back and look at this video, I think it's a pretty good, and you don't have any other videos of motivational interviewing in working. This is a pretty good video for a medical practitioner or just a brief intervention on the use of MI. I'm going to show the positive side of it. The front part of the video is what not to do, and then the section I want to show is what you would do. But check it out on your own. Let me know if this is coming through.
Conversations for change.
Okay, I'm going to pause. Did everyone hear that?
Yeah, it sounded good to me. I don't know about the audience, but it sounded good.
Okay, I'm going to fast forward it to the section that I think is helpful.
Yeah, and she's going to show the video here in a moment, folks. She just wanted to test the sound. We were having some sound issues with videos. So
yeah. Okay, I'm going to do full screen. Here we go.
Generally, open questions help to facilitate conversation by obtaining information and actively engaging the patient.
We're hearing but not seeing.
Why questions can increase tension by producing a defensive response.
Yes.
We're hearing but not
seeing. We see
seeing.
Maria arguing to maintain her position. As she does, her resolve to continue smoking increases.
You're not seeing the video?
And she becomes further disengaged from the provider. This is the very opposite of what we would like to see happen.
Yeah, I would pause it.
Okay.
I would pause it, and you need to close your current slide screen and then hover over the video.
Is to move Maria towards considering stopping her tobacco use. Next, Maria clearly states that she wants to focus on...
I think it's a little different than that, actually. It's because Zoom is like, Zoom knows that you have chosen to share the PowerPoint. So you actually need to go back and then click the share and then share, like do a new share.
New share, yeah.
Change
Okay.
the,
So do I do stop share and then go back in and do share?
yeah, you can do that. Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
there we go.
Okay, so share screen. Where is it?
It's at the bottom, that little green box says share screen at the bottom.
Yeah, I got that.
Okay.
I just need to pull up my, there. Can you see it now?
Yep.
Yes. Now
Okay.
we're on.
Now
On to
let's see.
something.
Now let's see if you can hear. I'm going to try to add the sound.
About her smoking, but
Can you hear that?
Yeah, we're good. Here we go.
Okay.
this provider
Yay!
continues with her own agenda. She does not acknowledge Maria's views, and the encounter ends in a standoff. So let's try this again. This time, the provider will use the motivational interviewing spirit and micro skills to positively engage Maria, resolve discord, and reach agreement to focus the conversation on her smoking.
Hello, Maria. It's nice to see you again.
Hello? I wish I could say it's nice to see you, but it's never good to have to come to the doctor.
Unfortunately for me, I hear that a lot. So we're going to talk today about how to manage your blood clots and some options for treating. But first, I wanted to check in on your smoking status. In our last visit, I recommended that you begin to think about quitting, and I would be interested in hearing your thoughts.
Well, I haven't really thought about it, actually. I thought about canceling this appointment because I knew you were going to bring it up again.
Talking about smoking with me is hard for you.
Yes, it's because you're going to tell me to quit like you always do. And then it feels you're just like everyone else, like my caseworker, the building manager. Everybody seems to think they know what I need to do, and nobody thinks I know anything.
So when it comes to smoking, you feel that other people want to tell you what to do and make your decisions for you. You don't feel heard or respected.
No respect. That's it, yes.
Well, I just want to say that I am very glad you decided to come in today so we can take care of this blood clot, because blood clots are very serious and I know you're concerned. As your provider, I have to be honest and say that smoking can cause blood clots. But hopefully some of the information I give you today will help you in your decision to quit smoking. Having said that, I know my opinion is not the deciding factor. Quitting smoking is a decision only you can make.
Well, I'm really glad I came in too. I have to get this blood clot condition under control. I know that.
Would it be okay with you if I share some information about smoking and blood clots, and I can tell you what I know, and then we'll see what you think?
Yes. I don't know that I will quit, but I will listen.
Did you notice that in this segment, the provider used a very different approach? First, the provider begins by asking an open-ended, non-judgmental question that invites Maria to share her thoughts. This creates a collaborative start to the conversation in which Maria felt like a valued partner. You likely notice the change in Maria's body language and the way she begins to talk more. The provider continues by reflecting back Maria's sense of frustration and feeling that she is not being respected. Next, the provider states clearly that the decision to quit smoking is a decision only Maria can make. This indicates a support of autonomy, and its effect is a rise in Maria's confidence and experience of being respected. Finally, the provider asks permission before sharing information, allowing Maria to respond to the information and share her perspective. This type of communication maintains the partnership that has been established and assures Maria that they are working together. By the end of this video, Maria is fully engaged in the discussion, despite being unsure about whether she wants to quit smoking. We know this because we see her listening, contemplating what has been said, and agreeing to continue the conversation. In the next video, we will see how the provider skillfully transitions from the MI processes of engagement and focusing to evoking. In this example, the provider is strategically focused on evoking the importance of quitting smoking for her and the reasons she may want to quit smoking.
So, what do you think?
I always thought that the blood clots came from my mother, like passed down, like genetics. I didn't know that smoking could cause this. I just thought that blood clots ran in my family. I guess I also didn't get how dangerous this clotting can be.
You seem surprised and a little more aware now of the smoking risks.
I guess so, yes.
So, Maria, I'd like to get a better sense of what you think about smoking. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being you don't think it is at all important that you quit, and 10 being you're ready to quit today, where would you put yourself?
Well, if you had asked me when I first came in, I would have said less than 1. But now I would have to say a 4.
Why a 4 and not a lower number?
That's a good question. Let me think about it. I guess it's a 4 because of the blood clots. The blood clots are really heavy on my mind right now.
So having a better understanding of how smoking adds to the risk of blood clots increases your desire to quit.
A little, yes.
What else, if anything, makes quitting important to you?
The bigger thing for me is the fear of being evicted from my apartment. There's a rule that we can't smoke in the house, and I stick to it for the most part, but the other day I smoked out the window, and that was only the second time I've done it. But don't you know, the building manager caught me. So now I am sure she's going to be watching me even more. I can't lose my apartment.
The possibility of losing your apartment because of smoking really upsets you, in addition to your health.
I would hate to think that my Santi and Theo lost their home because their mom chose smoking over abiding by a stupid code, even if I hate that rule. I smoked when I was pregnant with them. And thank you, Holy Mother, they were born healthy. I don't think I could live with myself if they lost their home because of something I'm doing.
So it sounds like your priority in life is taking care of providing for your children. It's obvious that you're a good mom. And if you had to leave your home because you were smoking, that would be tough to bear.
Yes, it would.
Let's look at what the provider did to evoke from Maria her own reasons for quitting smoking. Notice that the doctor did not rely on outside medical facts, but focused instead on Maria's values and concerns. First, the provider uses mainly open-ended questions and reflections throughout this portion of the interaction that are focused specifically on importance. Then the provider uses an importance ruler to assess Maria's sense of how important it is to stop smoking. Importance rulers provide a very quick and easy way to engage in the evoking process. Using a step down on the ruler, such as, why a 4 and not a lower number like a 2? The provider invites the patient to talk about the reasons why quitting is important to her. Had the provider asked a step-up question, such as, why not a higher number? Maria would have talked about all the reasons it is not important or hard for her to quit. The provider continues.
I'm going to pause it there. Let's see, how do I get out of here? Okay, comments. What'd you notice?
I think she really took time to listen to the client, to her patient. And I also think that when she talked about the lack of respect, that really hit a nerve with the patient that made her connect.
Yeah.
I thought that last point was amazing. Why not a lower number? The difference between why not a lower number and why not a higher number, and what responses that invokes. Crazy good.
Yeah. Yes, I've actually tried that with, I worked with younger age opioid dependent young adults, and I worked with teenagers and families my whole career. One thing I noticed is doing a structured scaling in a conversation. It depends on if people want to put a number to their experience. When it works really well. When it doesn't work, and a lot of times it doesn't work because it's hard to put a number for some people on their experience. Just kind of go with the flow of and the spirit of doing a scale, which is really tell me why you would change, and tell me why you wouldn't change. Is maybe a more open-ended way of doing that.
And Nora says, Doc, she says, she said the doctor found the priority for the patient, not the doctor's priority. And
totally.
And then Patrick Calf-Looking says, therapist, attentive listener, and really gave client autonomy in the session.
Did you guys notice how much the client opened up when the provider was more open herself? That she offered more information than what the maybe the purpose for the provider was to talk about smoking cessation. But what happened was that the client talked about what was really important to her, which was not the focus for the provider was smoking cessation. The focus for the client was how smoking gets in her way for housing for her children. So it took on a whole new flavor. And that's what I love about motivational interviewing. It really does, when used well, you learn so much about the person that you're trying to help in ways that you would not have known otherwise. Over and over and over again, when I use MI, that always happens. Okay, now what do I do to get back to my other screen? Do I do a new share?
Yep. New share.
New share, okay. I'll go back to this. Yeah, so I really like that. I really like that video.
Doc, I would close your chat box too, because it's leaving a black block out on the screen. Just Kevin and Kate and I can watch the chat box for you. There we go. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know what happened, because last time I could read the chat box and do the screen at the same time, but it's me. It's me and technology. Faux pas.
You can adjust your view options too at the top and do a split screen so you can see your slides and the audience. That's something you can.
Yeah.
But now we've got a little black bar that's appearing down below on the screen. So I'm not sure it's there. Now it's gone.
Okay. So what are people saying or thinking? Is there more that we want to discuss or talk about?
They would like a link to that video, so we can do that.
Okay.
I know there's been a couple other requests too. Kate, it would be nice if we could post our ATTC YouTube link, where we'll be posting this, both of these, part 1 and 2, later on. But I know a few people had requested that.
Okay.
Fantastic.
For those of you who are interested in that video, the front part of that video is what not to do, which is kind of when you're learning MI, it's always fun to watch what not to do. And then the segment you saw was what to do. So it's really the reason I showed that video was it's trying to show how to engage and how to use the oars with spirit and style for talking with somebody who might be a little resistant to the fact that they're in your office, or that maybe somebody mandated them, or whatever the issue is. So it's nice to see an example of how motivational interviewing can deflect that resistance and empower the individual to talk about what they want to talk about, while you're also focusing on what you are there to talk about. And so when she did open-ended, she did reflect, she affirmed, she did a readiness assessment for scaling, which is super important. The second part of it was she used the strategy of the scaling to evoke from the person what's important to them, and for them to reflect upon why they would choose to not smoke and why they would choose to smoke. So she's increasing motivation by asking, why would you stop smoking? And then she doesn't make the mistake of saying, assuming readiness. And that's super important. Kevin will talk about that in a minute, about the importance of being with somebody during a time where they haven't actually decided to make a change, but they're thinking about it, and what motivates them to not do it. So let's just take a few moments and go back to our case study. Here are our people, and I just wanted to give us some time to think about our two cases. Wendy, a 44-year-old Cherokee woman, comes to the clinic saying she's fearful for her husband, whom is ill, anxious about this new illness. Both her and her husband have underlying health conditions. She currently lives in a suburban community in her own home outside of her tribal community. And then there's Daryl, a 67-year-old Tlingit elder, who was, I'm sure I bastardized that, so if we have an Alaskan native, you can correct me, whom was asked to come to the medical clinic for heart and diabetes checkup. He's aware of the pain in his village, and he wonders if there's any Western medicine to offer his community. He doesn't feel he needs a checkup, but is here to calm his family's concerns. So take 2 to 3 minutes and write a summary statement. As part of it, you'll have to imagine what he might be or she might be saying to you. But and then think about what kind of summary statement would I offer to that person, and what type of, and particularly affirming or reflections that you might want to offer that indicates that you're encouraging without telling this person what to do or offering any advice. So let's take a few minutes, write down a few statements, or think about a few statements you might offer to either Wendy or Daryl, and then we'll have a discussion and see what we come up with. So there's 3 types of summaries, so just pick one. And any imagining of affirming statements you might make.
Can you go back to the case studies?
Yes, ma'am. There you go. Yeah, Steve and Kevin, let me know when people are ready.
Just take a couple more minutes, then maybe we can have a unmute yourself if you'd like to make a comment about either case.
Okay, let's see what we got here.
Chat box is quiet, Doc, so we're just, as you bring those screens up,
Clink
though,
it. Yeah.
Clink it. As you bring the screens up, you got some black spots on the slides again.
Yeah, I was just going to go to discussion at this point. So what are some folks' thoughts about our two cases? Anybody? Either, yeah, go ahead.
There's a comment by Kate
Yeah.
in the chat box. She's just commenting to Daryl about one of his comments. Your love for your community. Oh yeah, she's commenting about the second case. Your love for your community has brought you to make sure you are healthy enough to be here for them. Yeah, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Regarding the second, Daryl in the second case.
Very affirming.
Mm-hmm. And Cedra says, her comment is, tell me what you know about X, Y, Z, and for the other, please use or think of me as a bridge to your community.
Yeah, that's very nice.
Yeah, I like that.
Thank you.
Yes, Cedra, you might be a natural. I don't know what your training is, but that's well done.
I think that both of these show very much the need for these two people to be connected within their community, to be, again, it's really very culturally specific to Native American, because they're concerned about their community. And typically in the Western world, you don't see that as much. It's more, I'm coming in for me to take care of me and my family only. But these are people who are connected to their community.
Mm-hmm. Daryl, you are setting a great example for your people, the actions of a true leader. That's very nice. Nice affirmation, Roy.
Every once in a while, Roy comes up with a good one.
He comes up with a good one. Okay. Well, Cedra, I think you're in the right profession, even if you feel like an intern.
She may be a natural. I feel it.
Yeah. These are great comments, you guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to write them in.
Really wonderful.
Yeah. Perhaps after our explanation of our services, you'll understand the importance of checkups. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe not. Yeah. Explaining what you've got to offer. Not making any assumptions. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, that's good, Linda. That's nice.
So this really is sometimes you can combine a good affirmation with a summary statement. So a summary statement in and of itself can be affirming. So it's kind of like, it's pretty powerful actually to do both in one statement. The last, the Daryl case was actually, I've changed the names and the ages, etc., to protect their confidentiality, but it actually happened when I was visiting an Alaskan village several years ago. And it was a struggle for a person in the village who had Western education, whom was struggling with her village to accept what he or she knew would be helpful to them as a community. So these are great. Thank you so much for taking the time to write these comments. Okay, due to time, I wish I could spend more time with you in person, but this is a good second best, and these are really great comments. So what I want to do is I want to turn the slideshow over to Kevin. How do I do that? I think Kevin's got co-host capabilities. Right?
He sure does. I took a leap of faith and gave him co-host capabilities. So
I don't need. Do I need to do anything on my end so he can take over?
Yes, you will. You'll need to stop sharing if he's going to share something.
Okay,
yeah.
I just stopped sharing. Hi, everybody.
There. Yeah.
Yeah,
so now,
that's an odd angle for my face. Sorry. I'm an older person with technological challenges. So thanks for hanging in there with me.
Yeah, we still love you, Kathy. It's okay.
Okay. All right, Kevin, it's all yours. I'm gonna turn it over to you.
I don't have the slide deck. I thought that it doesn't really matter at this point. I will need them like in a few minutes.
Yeah, well, we can, Kathy, you can pull up the slides and just advance them for him if you want to pull your slide
I really
deck
don't
back
need
up.
the screen. Kathy, if you're willing to just advance the slides.
Okay, do I need to do something?
Yeah, you just go back to your
screen and keep those slides up.
Okay.
And I'm going to do just a brief breather.
So let me know.
Yes, I will.
Okay, so I won't do the share screen until you tell me.
Perfect. Okay, sounds good. So I am guilty of multitasking ever since Roy's link to the BBC about Zoom fatigue. It is directly applicable to this webinar. In fact, if I may, there at the beginning of the article, it makes reference to German research that shows delays on phone or conferencing systems of 1.2 seconds made people perceive the responder as less friendly or focused. If we're talking about in motivational interviewing a spirit of connection and genuine caring for the well-being of another person, especially in this vulnerable place of, you know, having to face a change in their life, kind of like all of us right now. 1.2 seconds makes a huge difference. And that article is incredible. I can't wait to actually read it. And I'm speaking just from the point of view of a practitioner of motivational interviewing. They're tiring. Working over video, working over any kind of virtual that involves a camera is a different experience than just being flesh and blood across from another human being. So, Roy, thank you for sharing that link, because it helped me make a connect, because, you know, I'm practicing as an addictions counselor in my day job, and we are 100% virtual now. 97% of my current patients, my caseload, have opted for phone only. And that's out of the kind of this process of just being person-centered, you know, acknowledging we're all headed this direction for virtual care. You have the option of a video or a phone call. They're opting for telephone calls, and I didn't expect that, because a lot of these clients, you know, we're well connected, been meeting with them for a while. And it was more just kind of a gut feeling on the part of the client. There was no, you know, real, you know, they couldn't explain a reason behind it. And it's starting to shape out now that it's been 3-4 weeks of meeting. It's reminding me of motivational interviewing trainings. So when Kathy and I do these 2 to 3 day event trainings, we frequently will make kind of a plug or a reference to this research that shows that MI trainings that last a couple, 3 days are really more just almost like a taste or a demonstration of it, like an experiential demonstration where you get to be in it and try it out and perhaps even recognize the power of it. And one of the temptations is, because it's so subtle, is to think, oh, I know how to do this already because I'm really good at engaging. Like, I'm an engaging personality. And what we often teach is engagement. Sorry, my other machine is talking to me. That's my work. It won't shut up either. That's great. And so the temptation is, because I have that first process, you know, that staircase of engagement, focus, evoking, and planning. That's full MI. I got that first step down, therefore I know what MI is. And so that's often kind of a theme in these events. And then we lead people into considering, if you really want to get good at this, get a coach. You know, practice. We'll help you. We'll be your coach if we're available, right? We'll connect you to the network, right? That's what the Motivational Interviewing Network of Trainers, that's the spirit of that, is that it takes a village just to be good at this and stay good at it, right? And we always want to, like, help other people get good at it because we recognize the beauty and the power of what we're calling motivational interviewing. Now, as I'm sure many of you recognize, the spirit of this is ancient. And as I've traveled with Kathy, especially amongst Indigenous folks, the spirit of MI piece is kind of like, yeah, and when am I going to learn MI? You know, it's there. We intuitively get that. So that article was just, there's layers in that. And it goes toward a point that Kathy is making these last week and this week, around, in this time of adversity and societal change, one of the practical ways it's manifesting is we're doing these Zoom meetings all the time. And sometimes we're doing conference calls. Even if it's a phone call, from motivational interviewing point of view, equally as powerful. Equally as powerful. And there's a reason for it. Specifically, it's because motivational interviewing stays very focused on language and the use of words. Does that mean that my gestures and the way my face looks and my tone don't matter? Of course not. I would be doomed otherwise. I rely on my ridiculous gangliness to connect to people. But ultimately, it comes down to the language that the person I'm talking to brings to me. When somebody is less than enthusiastic about being in the session with me, I'm thinking specifically of certain cases in addiction medicine. It could be anywhere where someone has perhaps an external motivation to be in the room. Someone is telling them they need to change. And frankly, I recognize what that person is, the other person is saying, and agree with them. And the other person is in there, my client is sitting like this. And I haven't ever met him before. This is the reason I recognize the power of MI, because it brings that spirit of humanity into the session. So this is a long way of setting up one of the core essences of motivational interviewing, which is recognizing the human experience of ambivalence. Having mixed feelings about the prospect of a change, pretty much, I mean, it could be any change. Often, if we're clinicians, it's a life change. Like that video we just saw. That human being is facing tobacco cessation, one of the most gnarly addictions on the planet. Why? Because we dose ourselves dozens of times every day. It's so reinforcing. It's one of the most difficult ones to overcome. And so I don't know if that was an actor or if it was a true client. Either way, you could feel it. And I appreciate really using a case of discord, which, you know, it becomes a piece of MI, a technical word in MI, and it still means discord. It means that there's an interruption in the relationship, and that MI is uniquely suited to a situation where there's a rupture, where there's discord, and that it actually can become an opportunity to go even deeper and to make further progress toward guiding a person to change. We're talking about ambivalence. It's a conflict in the mind. It is very uncomfortable to feel that conflict. I would hazard safely to guess that we've all experienced that. Some major change that maybe even a good one that we had second thoughts about. So from Roy's article to my little spiel there, I'd like to take us through a breather. This is a classic exercise that we use in the events, okay? That will bring us back to, my hope will be, it brings us back to the spirit of MI. And then we go, like, just reconnect with that. Because Zoom meetings are exhausting. That article, I just had never thought of that. They are. So let's take a breather and just reflect for a moment. I'm going to read a script from Steve Bergsmith, and you probably recognize it. Let's just go through it. We'll do some reflection on it, and then I'll get to the slides on ambivalence, and then we'll see where it takes us. Usually I'd go, does that sound okay? It's a Zoom meeting, so if somebody says no, somebody let me know. Okay. So I would invite everybody to get into a mode of reflection. This could be extremely challenging if you're like me and you have 3 machines around you and you're doing 3 jobs. and doing a webinar. I would invite you to put them down. You can even mute your video. Don't cut it off. Don't cut us off. There's a place in Zoom where you can black your screen so you don't have to feel like you're being watched. I've noticed that there's something to that it's allowed to mute your screen. You have that right. Because I want us to go internally and do a little reflection, a guided reflection. So maybe get comfortable, take a deep breath. In fact, it even says here, ask the trainees to put away their pens and paper. Invite them to get into a comfortable position. I'll skip forward to this. Here we go. I'd like you to think about someone in your life who helped you become the person you are today. I'd like you to think about someone in your life who helped you to become the person you are today. It could have been a person who is still in your life. It could be a person who is in your past. It is a person who means a lot to you. It could have been a teacher, a coach, a parent, an elder, or someone I haven't mentioned. Take a moment and actually picture that person in your mind. Can you see them in your mind, in your heart? Now, I would like you to think about the traits or the characteristics of this person that helped you in your life. The characteristics or traits of this person who helped you in your life. What are the words that come up? How were they with you? Did they talk more or listen more? Did they practice what they preached? Did they live what they say? What was their personality like? Were they open? Serious? Funny? Kind? I'd like us to take a few minutes, not minutes, moments, and identify at least 3 things about this person that were important to you. 3 things. If you can get them into single words, what a challenge. But maybe you can. The essence of this person. Take another deep breath, and we're going to come back into video land with these words, with these characteristics. And I'm going to take a risk here and invite people to make their mics hot. If you have a characteristic that you're willing to share with the group, what I would encourage you to do is say 1 word. And I'm going to let everybody go at once. We call this a deluge. Whatever that word, those traits, those characteristics, everybody just throw one out there. starting right now.
Wise.
Provider.
Kind.
Humble.
Nurturing.
Resilient.
Grounded.
Brilliant.
Positive.
Courageous.
Kind.
Empathetic.
Kind.
Selfless.
I love hearing all those voices. There's people out there. Thank you for that exercise. Personally, I guess I needed that, so I appreciate that gap there. You see where I'm going with this? That's MI.
What did I just do?
That's the spirit of MI. It just happens to be ancient. And some smart people figured out ways to get it into the professional world, finally. And actually affect some good in the lives of the people we serve in a better way. Not that it was bad before, it's better, and it's getting better and better. And that's my appreciation for everyone who's involved in this series of webinars, because we want to be that. My task right now is to talk about ambivalence. So if Kathy didn't run for her life, we can go back to the slides and run through those slides.
Yeah.
A lot of them are about, what is it? There we go. Thank you.
Okay, well, looks like we're up.
And there's the ambivalence stuff is down the way. And it's actually a student of Kathy's formulated an elegant deck of slides about ambivalence. If you keep advancing, you should get to something about ambivalence. There we go.
There we go.
You got it. 4 flavors of ambivalence. There we are. These are the slides.
Yeah, just back
it's
up
a
2
breakdown.
slides.
That's good. That's good. We're good
Okay,
right
that's okay. All right.
My suspicion is we know what it is as a group, and it bears repeating. What we're working with here, ideally, when we're engaging a person in the spirit of MI, that as the person having as the guide in the conversation, by the way, MI, we're guiding. A lot of the time we're guiding. Sometimes we follow. Sometimes even we direct. And a lot of the time, we are the Sherpa. We're going up the mountain with them. There are a bunch of ways up the mountain. We've been there. We've gone up and down the mountain many times. They haven't, but they want to. And then they don't, and then they want to, and then they don't. So we walk right alongside them. And it's their path. They're the ones walking it. In ambivalence, it's like having a committee in your head, where I have arguments to change and arguments for the status quo at the exact same time, that conflict. Bill says in the book, Bill Miller, or Stephen Rolnick, not sure which, that the reasons to change and the reasons to not change are already present in the person's mind when they show up. Already there. And our temptation is to provide them with those good reasons, because it's just human, at least in my way. It's just human to have you thought of the good reasons to change? Well, if they have those already, that could be trouble. And that's a key finding from MI, is that those arguments for change are already there. Our job is to come alongside, and we can guide that and draw out from them those reasons that are already there through the skills that Kathy covered last week and today again. ORS, are the basic building blocks of MI. Got to get that focus. Because if I don't have that focus, you know, at its most effective and simple, it's a behavioral focus, right? You know, I always tell my clients, this is our focus. And then they usually push back because I just told them what the focus was, right? That's not MI. We get to the point though where we clarify it. Okay, we're talking about this. Okay, so that's it. Did that happen or not? Focus. And then the conversation gets going. This would be that third step, right? In the engage, focus, evoke, and maybe plan if you have time. Notice that our employers, the agencies we work for, they want us to go in the opposite direction. Start with a plan. I think it's the Oregon State rules. You have to have a plan by the time you're done with the first session. A lot of times the focus and the plan are program engagement, and the plan is to return to make a plan. For me, because we're just getting started. It has everything to do with these slides on ambivalence. Two arguments that are very, very strong. Let's go to the next slide. See what that says. Yes, there's different types of ambivalence. Did you know that they were four-leggeds? I didn't. And it started making sense once I learned that from Kathy, that they're actually dogs. And the smallest one you think is the cutest one, that's the trouble right there. It's got two heads. I love this slide. Okay, so 4 types of ambivalence, and this is all from the book. The book goes through. There's a lot, and these are the next slides. So we can kind of zoom through those because I know we're running short on time. There's the pizza or ice cream ambivalence. That's a tough one. That's the two-headed puppy right there. How about the next one? Bad, bad. Do I go to jail or do I go to treatment? I get that free choice. Next one. Approach avoidance. Still don't have the words for this one. One way or another. I'm looking at it's complicated. If I go toward the choice, it becomes one way. If I go away from the choice, it becomes another. So if I approach change, I'm going to start thinking about, ooh, but then that means this. It's not good. I start walking away. I'm like, oh, but I might need, you know, that's a pretty classic ambivalent sounding conversation. How about the next one? The double. So it's both. I think the example for this is having 2 boyfriends or girlfriends at the same time. Something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Complicated. So, you know, this is how the text, MI, 3rd edition, 2013, does a breakdown of ambivalence. If you want to do a deep dive on the human phenomenon of ambivalence, the 3rd edition of Motivational Interviewing by Miller and Rolnick. It's robust. Kathy, would you add anything at this point as we're midway through these ambivalence slides?
I'm muted.
That's well, I think this
we can hear
slide
you.
will.
Oh, you can?
Yeah,
Oh, I thought I was muted. Okay, I just screwed this
Nope.
up. Sorry.
No, you're good.
No, you're doing a great job. That's what I would add.
So that slide is a gentleman, I think, standing at a crossroads. Ambivalence. If you're trained in MI and engaging a conversation, you're presuming the person has a change they're facing, even though it may not have even come up yet. And so if you hear ambivalence, then you know they need to make a decision. It might not be the change. The decision could be for the status quo, even though my bias is not that. They their autonomy. The human being gets the choice as to whether they make a commitment to change, or, as Kathy has taught me, and it's been so useful. If I'm grinding it out with a client and it's been past 4 full sessions of MI, which the research shows, you go past 4 full sessions, there's no real evidence that it's going to make any difference at that point. It's a brief intervention. I hit session 5 and we're still on this. Perhaps you've already made your decision. Maybe you're not ambivalent. And, you know, to communicate that in a person-centered way, but it's possible the person may have no ambivalence, but they need to say that they are ambivalent for whatever reason, right? That does not necessarily mean it's the end of the story. It just means that the focus could change. So if I think we're talking about stopping drinking, but it turns out the person, they come back and they are honest and they say, no, I just drank yesterday over and over and over again. Maybe they're not ambivalent about that issue. Maybe they're committed to drinking, but they need to keep coming back to counseling. Then the focus might change. Okay. So ambivalence seems very simple, but it can be a slippery fish. Here, this next slide about ambivalence still lingering. You can have a great episode of treatment with somebody who makes remarkable change, commitment, has made it through, has gone from one pole to the next, and just tremendous progress. And you may think, oh, we're done, we're good. No, not necessarily. Residual ambivalence. You know, depending on the time of day, my ambivalence can change. We ask these questions in group. I run 3 groups a week. And I used to hate this question. What is your motivation to be in group tonight from 0 to 10? Why did I hate it? Because everyone said 10, 10, 10. 10 is, I am the most motivated human being on the face of the earth. That's how I set it up. Like, because I just was getting exasperated. 10. So a patient actually suggested, because he could see it in my face, he suggested, why don't you ask us what our motivation was when we woke up this morning to be at group today? Ooh, that changed the ball game. It cracked the code. So residual ambivalence. I feel like I'm talking too much. How am I doing, folks, time-wise? Steve, Kathy?
We've got about, I'd say about 15 minutes around there.
And I know we want to do more. This is not the end of it. So this may be a good time to use this as a way to transition into the next phase of the presentation. But is there anything that I've left out? And I include everyone in the chat box. You know, this was my treatment of ambivalence as it pertains to MI. Any questions, concerns, or anything I've forgotten that would be important to say? Surely I'm not the expert here.
Hey, this is Roy.
Hey, Roy.
I just want to acknowledge that I share some of the challenges with doing the meetings over Zoom and meeting with people over Zoom. I rely very heavily on nonverbal communication, and when I'm working with someone one-on-one, there's a lot of matching, mirroring, and modeling going on. And for me, when I'm even just in business meetings, it's a real challenge to not have access to those nonverbal communication tools that I normally rely so heavily on. And so this is, I share your sentiment with the Zoom and communicating and everything down to those lag times. So it's taken an adjustment for sure.
Indeed. So appreciative of that reflection, Roy. it was probably the most difficult part of what continues to be a challenge in my own practice, where, you know, I've been meeting with a coach for a couple of years now. And the first challenge was finding that focus. The second was that rigor of listening to the words that the person brings. You can't have the words without the delivery, without the tone, without the energy of the words. And it really isn't like when we're training in it, it's an artificial thing. They take that out and they just do counts of words. And it just seemed so not real. And yet I see what they mean. And it actually has really served my practice to listen for those technical pieces. But they got to come back into the actual human interaction. And so I just appreciate that article is out there, because that means that there's other people starting to have this conversation globally. Because I'm a little concerned about what this virtual mode is doing to our globe at a human level. So I do think there's hope, because we're bringing it up. Other people of goodwill and good energy are bringing it up as well. And we'll start to learn things like, oh, it's like a regular human meeting. We can take a break, you know, we can mute our screen, you know, all these little stuff, but still it's just no substitute for the real thing, in my opinion. Thank you.
It's can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was just listening and I was thinking, oh, this is ambivalence. What you're experiencing and what we might all be experiencing is ambivalence. And the ambivalence of wanting to connect in the way we can connect right now, which is virtual or over the phone,
Totally.
and really wanting to be with others in a physical way. And I thought, oh, this is ambivalence. This is what it feels like to be ambivalent about a choice that is somewhat taken away from us while we're encouraged to stay at home, and wanting to stay at home to protect our elders and to protect our communities, and still wanting desperately to be connected. And that's what it feels like.
Kate says,
yeah.
Kate's comment, ambivalence is painful.
It is painful. And that's why people keep coming back to us, is because it is painful and they want the pain to subside or go away or not be so strong. And it is a very painful experience when you feel pulled in two different directions that are equally powerful.
Yeah.
So I wanted to give Steve and Kate time to at the end of our presentation to talk about the GIPRA evaluation. I did have a slide, and I'll work with Steve and Kate to get this out to you in paper format or through email. The agenda setting, I have instructions with some handouts, and we'll give you the PowerPoint. And I wanted to remind people, here's the process that was used in the video. Some of the points, working on a focus, assessing ambivalence, assessing readiness, listening for change talk. And then she didn't get to helping to plan for change because the person wasn't ready. So back to Kevin's original comment, our agencies, our clinics sometimes want us to make a plan before someone's ready to make a plan. So the plan might be to think about planning. And that's maybe one way to get through it. Here are the books that we are using from our presentation. And here's some resources for you off the top of my head. But a lot of you guys in the class actually have lots of resources that you've shared with us that I think we'll be able to get out to you. And then just to kind of a final wrap up, things you can do. Use the handouts and try it out in a session. go to one of the websites and review, read sections of the text. Kevin mentioned the ambivalence sections are fantastic in MI 3rd edition. Create an activity to share with, that was for our session 1 participants. And just keep practicing and getting a coach, getting someone, I'm available, Kevin's available, to help you learn this through practice and feedback and coaching. So with that, I will turn it back over to Steve and Kate, and thank you very, very much for the opportunity to talk with you this morning.
Here. Same. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tomlin and Kevin. It was really, really appreciated this. Thank you very much. Before we wrap things up, I wanted to turn the floor over to Roy briefly to take us out with just a short blessing and prayer closing today's event. Roy?
Thank you so much. I'm always honored and nervous when I'm asked to do this, but for today, I'd like to share gratitude and thanks from the Creator, with the Creator, and thank the Creator for bringing these people here together and sharing all this knowledge that everybody shares here. I'd like to thank for myself and hopefully other people as well, to thank the Creator for that humility, love, and empathy and compassion that keeps us in check, that keeps us moving in the right direction with these understand these entities, so we can reach out and help them, so that we can be in a good way and act in a good way with them and help them in a good way. These people are hurting and they need us. They need our help. They need your help as well, the Creator. And I just want to say thank you for all those gifts and for the gifts of those people that come to us. They help us learn as well, just like we learn from each other. And for today, I'd like to thank the Creator today, just for today. This is a day, it's a good day. And allowing us to choose this path of being a good day and make it that way. For all these things and many more, I'd like to say thank you.
Appreciate that, Roy. Thank you. Again, if you have a chance to fill out your survey link, there's a link to the survey. If you can't do that today, we will email you shortly with a link via email to fill out the survey. It's very short, about 2-3 minutes. That'll also give us a chance to get some feedback from you to let us know what we're doing well and where we can improve. Again, I want to thank our speakers and presenters and all of you, each and every one of you. It's great to see some familiar faces. And for those of you that returned, we had a nice turnout for the second installment. So, Kate, is there any other orders of business that I am missing?
I don't think so. I think, I'll just watch for your email in the next couple of days. We'll have a link to the recording of this. You can feel free to share it with colleagues. We'll have handouts of the slides sent in that email. And then, again, the survey, if you don't get it there in the chat today, you'll get another chance to fill it out then. But that does it for us. So thank you all so much for joining.
One more
Thank
thing.
you, everybody.
Quick.
Yes,
Real
Kevin.
Quick, just to put it out there, Kathy and I, we love doing this. We love doing this. So if y'all feel moved and recognize that this might be something good for you and the people with whom you work, let Steve and Kate know.
Yeah.
They'll get us out there. We want to be doing this. So it's good to meet you all.
Thank you very much. Everybody be safe and take care, and we'll see you again. Dolce.